If it's okay with
Okay.
you, Mr. Chair, can I turn my camera off just to avoid some of the clutter, or do you want me on?
However you feel, Chief. I mean, if you wish to go off, but when we do definitely ask you a question, if we could see your facial expressions when questions are being posed, but if you feel like turning off the camera, I don't have a problem.
Yeah, no, it just may make it more simple on the thing, but I will do that. Thank you, sir.
Okay, if that's okay with the rest of the board, Councillor Huffman, you're okay with that? Okay. Member Van Houten, Member Cruz, you're good? Okay.
Through the chair, we are live now.
Okay, good morning to all. I'm calling the meeting to order of January the 19th of 2022 of the Norfolk Police Services Board meeting. We are being held live stream. If anyone wishes to join us, we're at www.norfolk.ca, watch Norfolk County meetings. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, there's no public access to council chambers, and the proceedings, of course, are being web streamed live and archived at Norfolk County's website. So the deputations are going to be presented electronically. So with that, I just want to make sure that before we go into the introduction of our new Police Services Board member, I just want to say good morning to the board members. I believe we have Board Member Van Houten, Board Member Cruz, Councillor Huffman. I believe we have the mayor not attending today. Is that correct? Madam Secretary?
Through the chair, that is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. We also have our Chief of Police. We have the deputants. I believe we have a representative from Crime Stoppers. We also have Christine Arhop and Doug Brunton and Amy Bernardo, also from Crime Stoppers. Have I missed anyone else, Madam Chair? Madam Secretary?
I believe that is all that we have on the line at this time.
Okay.
We are still trying to get Mr. Brunton on, but
Okay, so before we proceed with the agenda, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. I was sent one of 60 pages of the agenda, and the last page, the 60th page, refers to an information memo to the Police Services Board dated January the 12th of 2022 with regards to orientation and the complaint process. Then also we have 18 other pages that were sent to us, which I believe is an updated report from our Chief of Police, the OPP, 18 pages, and the last page ends with stats of November of 2021. So are we all on the same page with this, members?
Yes.
Yes.
We are? Okay, great. Madam Secretary, so we're good with that? So we're all on the same page? Okay.
that is correct.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I will start out by introducing our new Police Services Board member, Mr. Michael Cruz. I believe he's been appointed by Norfolk County and he represents Norfolk County at large. So Mr. Cruz, if you may, you have the floor.
Okay, well, first and foremost, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm both honored and delighted to be appointed to the Norfolk County Police Services Board at this time. It truly is a privilege. For most of my life, I have been passionate about public safety and issues surrounding community safety. I'm currently retired from a 35-year policing career with the Hamilton Police Service. I retired in February of 2009. During my career, I worked in several areas, including uniform patrol, various investigative units, and forensic identification. Most of my career in the last 15 years were in forensics. After I retired, I did 6 years of contract work with the Hamilton Police Association, working with our members on labor issues, complaints, grievances, arbitrations, WSIB matters, WSIAT matters, and long-term disability matters. After that 6 years, I retired in full, and I have done over my career. I've done various community service volunteer matters. I was for 9 years. I was a director on the board of directors of the Catholic Children's Aid Society of Hamilton Wentworth, and served as the president of the board for the last year. I was a member of the Ancaster Community Advisory Committee to our councillor. I was a member of the Board of Governors of the Hamilton Future Fund for the first terms. I think it was a 4-year term. I was a director of the Phoenix House Board of Directors, and that is a organization with respect to survivors and children of survivors of domestic violence. Earlier, I was a member of the Port Dover Harbor Marina Advisory Committee for 2 years, and Inspector, you'll know this. After my 20 years in policing, I was awarded the Police Exemplary Service Medal, and after 30 years of policing, I was awarded the first bar of the Exemplary Service Medal by the Governor General. In 2012, I was honored to receive the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal from the Governor General. And I just have to say, I look forward to working with my board colleagues, with Norfolk Council, county staff, citizens, and the detachment commander and others in determining the objectives and priorities for the detachment in accordance with the needs of all citizens of Norfolk County, and to ensure adequate and effective policing for the county. I currently live in Port Dover and have lived here with my wife of 35 years since 2014.
Excellent. Congratulations. An amazing resume there. So welcome to Norfolk County and of course the Police Services Board. By the sounds of your resume, we'll be looking to you for some advice with reference to possibly policing. For sure, no doubt. Any questions from the board members? Councillor Huffman, Member Van Houten?
No, just to say very impressive. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, well, welcome once again, Member Cruz.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to pass on to agenda 1.2, chair and vice chair election. So Madam Secretary Olson, I will pass that to you and ask that we open the floor.
Through the chair, yes. So as per our procedure bylaw, the Police Services Board elects a chair and a vice chair at the beginning of each year. So we are at our first meeting of 2022. So what I would ask is if there is any nominations to put forward for the position of chair for 2022 for the Police Services Board. Mr. Van Houten.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to nominate George Santos for chair.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Going once? Again, are there any nominations, other further nominations? All right, we will conclude nominations closed. So if we could have a motion to appoint Member Santos as the chair for 2022. And a seconder. And all in favor. All right, so through the chair, if you want to, do you want me to continue the nominations for vice chair, or did you want to take that?
Madam Chair, since you're doing a great job in that regard, and I also duly accept.
Oh yeah, I guess I should ask that, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, I duly accept, and I thank the members and the board and look forward to working with them during my tender. So Madam Secretary Olson, I would suggest that we continue on with reference to the vice chair, please.
Yeah, do we have any nominations for Vice Chair of the Police Services Board for 2022? Mr. Van Houten?
Thank you. I would like to nominate Kim Huffman for Vice Chair.
Councillor Huffman, do you accept that nomination?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for Vice Chair? All right, I'll call a second time. Are there any other nominations for Vice Chair? All right, we will call nominations closed. So if I could have a motion to appoint Member Huffman as Vice Chair for the Police Services Board for 2022. Member Van Houten and a seconder. Chair Santos, all in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Congratulations, Councillor Huffman. Look forward to having you as Vice Chair and assisting me. So, Madam Secretary, is it okay if we continue on? Okay.
Absolutely. The agenda, it belongs to you now, Chair Santos.
Okay. Thank you. So moving on. Point 2, approval of the agenda, changes to the agenda. Vice Chair Huffman.
Well, you caught on to that one quick. Vice Chair already. Thank you. I had to think for a second. I was just wondering if I could please add to the agenda a couple items, if that would be okay.
Sure.
I would like
let's
to
go with
add
that.
911 calls and the community policing group.
Okay, so Madam Secretary, would that be fair to add it to 9.6 or 9.5?
Through the chair, we already have an addition as 9.5 that was circulated yesterday, so it would be 9.6 and 9.7.
Okay. I'm just wondering, Madam Secretary, if in reference to the 911 calls, if that could maybe be introduced in 7.2 with the Ontario Provincial Police stats for the month of December, because I believe that there's reference to the 911 calls on a number of pages, if that is probably easier for us on the agenda. So there's consistency and continuity. Is that okay, Madam Vice Chair?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
No problem. I just want to make sure that we have a little bit of a discussion about those two items. So wherever they fit in the agenda is fine with me.
Okay, so Madam Secretary, I'm good with 9.6 being the Community Policing Advisory Committee and the 911 information be 7.2 in reference to the stats, if that's okay.
That's fine, Chair Santos.
Okay. So, Madam Secretary, noting that, we'll need a mover and a seconder. So I'll leave that to Madam Secretary.
So do we have a mover? Vice Chair Santos? Sorry, Vice Chair Huffman and seconder? Member Cruz, thank you. If you want to call the vote, Chair Santos?
Okay, all in favor? Okay, perfect, thank you. Carried. Okay, so moving on, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on. Okay. Point 4 of the agenda, confirmation of the minutes from the previous meeting. On page 9, Police Services Board meeting of December the 15th of 2021. So, Madam Secretary, I'll leave that with you in reference to a mover and a seconder.
Can we have a mover of the minutes for December 15th? Member Van Houten? And a seconder. Vice Chair Huffman.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, and it's carried. Thank you. Moving on to point 5, presentations. So on my agenda, I have here 6.1, Dan Nagy, Norfolk County Protocol Concerning External Police Forces on page 15. I do want to comment on this. I did send an email, but I think it's important that transparency and offering a clear, honest assessment here with regards to Mr. Nagy. So to the board and to the members of the board and to our community, I received an email from our board secretary advising me that Mr. Nagy sent an email advising that he will not be delivering a deputation by Zoom, as he's mentioned, and he's not going to participate due to its inefficiencies. So with that, I sent an email to the board members, and I'm going to just read that out so we have a clear understanding, and so the public has a clear understanding in reference to Mr. Nagy. So if I may, Madam Secretary, the email says, I've reviewed the below correspondence and found this very troubling coming from Mr. Dan Nagy. I personally stopped in to visit Mr. Nagy at the place of work to understand better what is happening with this issue. Mr. Nagy advised me that he was very upset at the Norfolk Police Services Board about not allowing him to speak in person at our Norfolk County Administration Building on January the 19th of 2022 at 9 a.m. And then that he sent several emails to Mayor Chop and to all councillors on the issue wanting to speak in person at council chambers in 2021 or early 2022. In conversation with Mr. Nagy, I advised him that I received no emails to that effect, but I am aware of his deputation paperwork submitted in December and his willingness to be heard on January the 19th of 2022 in person. I advised him that we, the Norfolk Police Services Board, will be holding our meeting virtual due to an email I received and our members received on January the 10th of 2022 at 12:57 p.m. from Norfolk County Clerk's office. He advised me that he will take a full-page advertisement in the Simcoe Reformer and the Norfolk and Tillsonburg Times because we, the Norfolk Police Services Board, will not allow him to present an oral deputation at Norfolk County Administration Building. I did advise Mr. Nagy that the rules are with Norfolk County and not with the Norfolk Police Services Board. I did caution Mr. Nagy that I and the Norfolk Police Services Board or the OPP cannot comment on any issues that are related to the late Roger Katanko. I also did advise that we should wait until the Special Investigations Unit has prepared a report so that this or he doesn't jeopardize the investigation. So the above information is to update the Norfolk Police Services Board and our police chief and Mr. Nagy's deputation, being that it will not go ahead. So I want to be transparent to the public and to our county taxpayers that he had an opportunity, but unfortunately due to what was just said. So are there any questions from the board members in that reference? Seeing that there's none, I think that's fairly clear cut. We'll move on, if that's okay. So we will move on to 6.2, Crime Stoppers Deputation. I believe, now I have here on my deputation or on my agenda, Neil Unwing, and I understand that he has, if I'm not mistaken, resigned from the Haldeman Norfolk Board of Directors, and currently we have Mr. Paul Lang, who's an acting chair. Is that correct, Madam Secretary?
Through the chair, I'm going to defer that to Mr. Lang. I was not made aware of that, but perhaps one of our committee coordinators was.
Okay. Okay. The reason I mentioned that, Madam Chair, is I noticed in the documentation, there was a reference to that. But I'll introduce Mr. Lang. Mr. Lang, good morning and welcome to the Norfolk Police Services Board.
Well, thank you very much. I hear a bit of an echo, and so if I happen to be on the phone and on a video, if you want to kill the phone, I found the technology to be able to be here. I want to thank everybody once again for allowing us to report to the Norfolk Police Services Board on our activities of the past year.
Excuse me, Mr. Lang.
2021 was a trying year. We have positives and negatives, ebbs and tides throughout the year. Our leader, as you were mentioning, Neil Unwin, has stepped aside for personal reasons. We're hoping that he will return very soon, and unequivocally, we will return him to his proper position as chair. In the interim, I'm acting as chair until he returns or until our AGM in April. Prior to this, leaving, Neil was able to recruit 2 new members, so we now have a board of 8. Part of our mantra this year is to recruit more. The Haldeman Norfolk Crime Stoppers covers an area of about 2,500 kilometers and a populace of 100,000 people. And similar boards are working within Crime Stoppers have members in their teams, so we are striving to recruit more from both counties. COVID has undoubtedly raised havoc with a number of organizations, including Crime Stoppers. Our Zoom versus face-to-face meetings was split equally last year. We had a better year in 21 than we did in 20 for fundraising as a result of the return of our annual golf tournament. But in both 20 and 21, we missed our gala, which is a major fundraiser for the board. Trying to replace the thousands of fundraising dollars from our gala is challenging, but we're looking forward. Replacing a portion of those funds in 21, we had rain barrel sales, which we hopefully will be pursuing again this year. We were having a talk about trivia night in the spring. Our golf tournament has been booked for August. We'll hope to see some of you out for that. Hoping that COVID won't distract from it this year. And once again, we'll be having our popular shredding dates in Simcoe as well as in Caledonia and Dunnville. COVID has not taken a break over the past 2 years, nor is the cost of chasing down the criminals. For the past 2 years, we've needed insurance, gas, cell phones, licensing, and many other extras of increasing costs. When thinking of Crime Stoppers, most picture drugs and guns, but we are a whole lot more than that. Working directly with the MNR over illegal hunting and fishing, with Canadian Pacific regarding railway tampering this past year, and Crime Stoppers of Canada this year has taken on the theme of human trafficking. We continue to support the student Crime Stoppers programs that are established in the secondary schools in the area, offering a $1,000 bursary to the graduating student that has been active in his, her, or they Crime Stoppers program through the William Courtney Memorial Award. Our small 8-member board has a mission to complete its 3-year plan, so that we'll be describing our true north direction here very shortly towards budgeting, fundraising, promotion, and more. Let's hope to have that completed by March of this year. As a result of the increased costs of the day-to-day running of the program, the lack of media help from Norfolk, and the loss of funds through no fault of our own, we are requesting from the board $5,000. We are putting that towards the board at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Thank you for your service and representing Crime Stoppers of Haldeman, Norfolk. What I will do is I'll put it out to the members for any questions. Now, just so that all members are aware, in the past, it has been fairly consistent that the Norfolk Police Services Board has given up to $2,000 in donations. From what I understand, in the past 2 years that I've been a provincial
is now exiting.
Provincial board member, I've known that $2,000 in 2020 and $2,000 in 2021. So if we have any discussion. Vice Chair Huffman.
Thank you, Chair Santos. Through you, before we make a you know, go forward with any type of ask, what is the actual, what is our actual budget of funds available?
Vice Chair Huffman, great question. I will put that to our board secretary, Madam Olson. Madam Olson, please.
Through the chair, I apologize. Finance is still working on what that full ask or full amount is. What I would suggest to the board is I do believe we can cover 2,000 for sure. If the board wanted to provide more, my suggestion would be to approve the 2,000, and if there's budget for additional and you want to do additional, then to add that into the motion. So confirm the 2,000 that you have been providing annually, and if it's within the budget, then an additional that, but subject to budget provisions, if that is okay with the board.
Vice Chair Huffman, is that okay?
I like that suggestion. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Ms. Olson.
Member Van Houten?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to commend the great work that the members of the Board of Directors of the Crime Stoppers does, that's for sure. It's very valuable, and I certainly get how challenging it's been even to raise funds during this time. So I also I think that Mrs. Olson's suggestion is a very, very good one, so that if we start with 2,000 and we may be able to add a little on there. I know we don't have a very big budget there, but if we could, I would certainly be in favor of going ahead with the 2,000 for the time being, and then getting back to Crime Stoppers and to the Board of Directors there if we're able to do a bit more than that. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Van Houten. Mr. Cruz, do you have any questions of Mr. Lang?
No, I don't.
Okay, I just wanted to make mention here on page 21 of 60, I noticed that Crime Stoppers in November of 2001, they had 535 calls or tips received up until that day. That's amazing. 535 tips received up until the end of November. So I want to definitely applaud Mrs. Bernardo and Mr. Lang in regards to that high number, and of course with the assistance of the OPP. So with that, what I'll do, Madam Chair, or sorry, Madam Secretary, is I'll put it forth for a motion.
Through the chair, if I may, I would suggest the motion would be that the Police Services Board provide a $2,000 donation to Crime Stoppers in 2022. And if there is additional funding available in the grants portion of the budget, to increase that amount to, and then whatever you want that amount to be.
Okay. Okay. That sounds fair. So hearing that, Madam Secretary Olson, then do we have a mover and a seconder? Madam Secretary, I believe Vice Chair Huffman moved.
Okay.
And it was seconded by provincial appointee Van Houten.
Okay. And do we have a number? What's the maximum you want to go up to if we have room? The board
I would say the maximum. We can determine that probably at a later date, but for now, I think we just stick to consistency of the 2,000, unless otherwise. Vice Chair Huffman, any comments?
No, I mean, I don't have another figure in mind because I don't know what the budget, is, so I don't want to give a figure that is unattainable, so.
So then if I can just amend, if the board is in agreement, I'll just amend the motion then that if there is additional funding available in the grant portion of the budget, the board consider increasing this to be brought back at a later meeting.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fair. Yep, Madam Secretary, that's fine. So you want to put it to a vote?
All in favor?
Okay,
passes.
it's carried. Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. Okay, moving on to 6.3, letter from Christine Harrop, and I believe Doug Brutton, re-bringing photo radar to Norfolk County. So I'll ask everybody to turn to page 16 so we could follow through with the 2 deputations that are being put forth. Please and thank you. Okay. Good morning, Christine. Good morning, Doug, and welcome.
Okay, good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Mr. Brutton. Yes, good morning. Welcome. So the floor is yours, Christine and Doug.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing us to be here. I'm going to speak for the first 5 minutes, and then Doug will follow me with the next 5 minutes. So why am I here? So I believe you all have a copy of the letter that I had addressed to the Norfolk County Police Services Board on December 10th, and I'm representing my neighborhood, which was formerly known as Colburn Village, to tell you that I and many of my neighbors do not feel safe walking or driving on Norfolk Street North. This is not the first time that a member of the neighborhood has approached the Police Services Board and the mayor regarding traffic concerns. Back in October 2020, I believe Carmen Slaney wrote a letter to the Norfolk County Services Board regarding traffic concerns. I believe Jeanette Sanders also wrote a letter to the mayor, as well as called the Public Works Department in September of 2020 regarding an accident that involved a family member at the intersection of Norfolk Street North and Davis Street. And an accident happened when someone made a left turn in front of a driver who had the right of way. So I believe you also have received a copy of the online petitions with names that were signed. On that petition, I provided you with the link. As well, you were provided with a paper copy of signatures. So when I presented that to Aaron on Monday, we had a total of 74 signatures supporting the petition. I've had 3 other names added, 2 by paper and 1 by online signature, and I can provide Aaron with that if you'd also like to see those names. So why do we feel unsafe? So drivers are excessively speeding and do not change their rate of speed to adjust to a 50K speed limit in a residential area where lanes change from 2 lanes at the highway level to 4 lanes at the residential area. Drivers are treating the 4 as a speedway. I could not obtain any information from the OPP to verify what the speed levels are based on the radar that they have conducted. I was advised that as a member of the public, I do not have access to that information. What do we fear? And again, I provided for you comments that were gathered on the online petition. And I'm just going to tell you what some of the concerns are. Being rear-ended when turning into our driveways or onto side streets. This has actually happened to 3 individuals. Being at the sidewalk level when inattentive cars jump curbs. And this has happened to a pedestrian who was walking on the sidewalk on Norfolk Street North when an inattentive driver on a cell phone jumped the curb and luckily missed the pedestrian. Being hit as a pedestrian when at the intersections, cars do not slow down on the green light for right or left turns. And there was a mother in that intersection on Norfolk Street and Davis. She was walking across. She had her baby in a stroller, and it was a near miss. And we've had many near misses when people are not stopping on the red for right turns. Concerned about being hit when cars run red lights, even when the light is not changing. This is what precipitated my letter. I observed a car entering, or had the right of way on a turn, entering the intersection at Norfolk and Davis by making a left on to Norfolk Street. Simultaneously, a driver on Norfolk Street heading south ran the red light. That driver making that left turn would not have seen that driver running the light, which was not a light change, because there was a car on Norfolk that was stopped on that center lane. Miraculously, both drivers remained in their lanes. I was concerned if that driver had changed from the center to the right, we would have had a horrific accident based on the speed that I observed. I also could have been in that intersection, or any other pedestrian. So that was actually quite upsetting. For our children's safety at school buses, we have pickup and drop-off zones on Norfolk Street North, where parents watch drivers regularly run that flashing stop lights on those buses. We have an uneasy feeling of walking on Norfolk Street North as vehicles, transport trucks whiz by us at a high rate of speed, and the sidewalks are very close to that street, so we can actually reach out and touch them. And I now carry a notebook and a pen trying to catch license plate numbers. They're going too fast. I can't see them. We fear a serious accident will take place without some type of enforcement strategy, as too many misses have been witnessed and we've had fellow neighbors be involved with these near misses. Before we had lights put in on that intersection, there was a fatality. There's a healthcare provider that provides services on the corner of Norfolk Street North and Davis. And since he has opened his practice, there was another fatality. So the required, we're asking for calming traffic measures that efficiently and effectively reduce speeds on a regular basis. I'm aware that the City of Hamilton and Brant County have adopted the Automated Speed Enforcement Program, which I know goes by initials ASE. And I understand this program has been proven to be effectively in enforcing speed limits, increasing driver awareness and changing driver behavior, and decreasing injuries and fatalities as a result of an MVA. I believe on the City of Hamilton's website, you can find results of their camera sites, and they're indicating a reduction of speed from 2 to 10K. I'm also aware to bring ASE to our community, and specifically to Norfolk Street North. It needs to be identified as a community safety zone. The fact that this street has speed limits of 50K. We have 4 lanes of traffic. We're dealing with a high amount of traffic. We're in a residential area with regular pedestrian traffic consisting of seniors, young families, dog walkers, joggers, runners, bikers, and we're all crossing what I consider a dangerous intersection, Norfolk Street North and Davis Street, and people want to access the 3 walking trails. So we have access to the trail to Delhi, we have the access to the trail to Waterford, and we have access to the trail to Port Dover, and it's highly used. People enjoy using Lions Ballpark, and there's a playground that families regularly use. A lot of people have to cross that intersection to access those amenities. As well, I was informed by an OPP constable that the speed spies identified this area was an area of concern. You would have access to those statistics. So why am I here with the Police Services Board? Because the Ontario Provincial Police vision is of safe communities. We are letting you know we don't feel safe. And I reviewed the Ontario Provincial Police action plans, and they've identified they would like to reduce the overall number of traffic collisions. I know that a neighbor who lives at the intersection of Davis and Norfolk Street tells me on average there's one accident a month there. And also I read that the Norfolk detachment is committed to a traffic safety approach that will change traffic behavior. So all the people who have signed the petition that's in front of you are requesting you adopt the priority of bringing ASE to Simcoe to the intersection of Davis Street and Norfolk Street North. I also have to let you know that other neighbors who have signed this petition are also wanting attention to Norfolk Street North and 14th Street because they have similar concerns. And we need this as a consistent and effective traffic safety measure to keep us safe. We are asking for immediate action on this request with specific timelines on how you will adopt this as a priority. So now I'm going to let Doug speak. He has a vested interest as a property owner and has a bird's eye view of the intersection of Davis and Norfolk Street North, and he can discuss on why that's a dangerous intersection.
Thank you, Mrs. Earhop, for the excellent presentation. Mr. Brunton, do you want to join us, please?
Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I see you and I see Councillor Huffman, and I don't know the other people. I only see 6 people on the video. I'm looking at a YouTube video, but if you can hear me, I'll try and go through what I see at that intersection. And again, we do own property there, my son and myself, and what I like to start with by saying is my background is in public works, and I've done a lot of, I've installed many of the traffic signals in Simcoe during my career. And for the record, Norfolk Street North is Provincial Highway 24, but it is also, to my knowledge, still a connecting link right from number 3 highway to the 13th at the north end, 13th concession. And what I would like to talk about briefly is speed and delay studies and traffic signal warrants. I don't know if any of you are familiar with those or not, but I'll give you a brief description of both, and then at the end I'm going to tell you where I think something has gone amiss with some of the history of what's gone on up there. Speed and delay, if some of you understand it, is when you probably a good example would be 24 north of Cambridge, where you have traffic signal lights all sequenced, so you constantly, if you're traveling at 50 or 80 kilometers, you go through constant green lights. That's like a small speed and delay application where you're not delayed. But if you look at a broader example, if you were in Fort Erie and you're going to Windsor at 80 kilometers an hour, you should be in Windsor at a certain time frame. Well, years ago, Highway 3 was a controlled access, so what happened is the province came to us and said, too many delays when we were developing on the Queensway. So they went around Tillsonburg and they went around St. Thomas with bypasses. Thank goodness they didn't do Simcoe, but it was in the sights. Now, speed and delay can work in reverse, and I say this because the 14th by Ryerse's Greenhouse and Davis Street, in order to slow traffic down, you can sequence the lights to work in reverse. It might be a difficult one in that area, but I believe it goes from 60 kilometers down to 50 at the 14th and then through to Davis Street. But you could time that light so when people are traveling, and they won't travel at 50 because we all know they speed over to 60 and 70 in the 50 mile per hour zone. So you time it so halfway through that area between the 14th and Davis, you you turn the red light on, so they have to stop. So that's like a delay. It slows traffic down. That might be a difficult one, but it's something that should be considered. The other one I wanted to talk about briefly is the Davis Street intersection. Numerous accidents have occurred there, and how signalized intersections come into be. It's called a traffic signal warrant, and you go through that exercise of a signal warrant to determine whether there needs to be changes or a new light installed at an intersection. And I'll give you a quick what you look at. When you look at an intersection, you look at pedestrian traffic. This is all under a warrant, and it's in the manual. It's not a complicated exercise. I call it traffic 101, but you look at pedestrian traffic, you look at speed on all the approaches, you look at the traffic volumes, you look at the turning movements, you look at the geometry of the intersection, and you look at the lighting. But the most important thing you look at an intersection is traffic accident history. If there are considerable accidents there, there's something wrong. And at that particular intersection, there are all kinds of accidents. I've seen a few of them because I've been working at that intersection the odd time, and there was a fatality there years ago, and that's why we put that light in. Things have changed. You got Rona, Lions Park, my son's clinic is there, so there's a lot more traffic, and really what is needed is advanced left turns for northbound and southbound traffic, and you don't need to hire a consultant to do it. The controller in those areas or at that intersection had the capability at one time. It just requires a couple of new heads on the signals to allow traffic to advance turn. But then what's gone amiss here is the accident history, and I've spoken with some people in the past. Accident history has to be funneled into the from the Police Services Board to the GIS department or engineering, so they can keep track of where these things happen. We used to pin map it. We used to get all the accident reports from the police and pin map the intersections, and that allowed us to determine there were problems occurring. Now, confidentiality is an issue, but they were always blacked out. You don't need to know the names. You only need to know where and why it happened. And at that particular intersection, there have been considerable accidents. My son has been called out there at several times because they think he's going to come out and help. But there was a fatality years ago. I believe another lady was deceased there a few years ago that was in an accident. She didn't happen at the intersection, but she passed away later in the hospital. But so I think it's very important, and I don't know if the police are providing that information anymore to engineering. The GIS department at the county could easily tabulate that information, but I don't know if you understand all that stuff. I maybe got a little bit too technical, but I've done a lot of it in the past, and I can assure you that intersection needs advanced left turns both ways. And the speeding, with speed and delay, if that can be accommodated, it would certainly slow traffic down. So anyways, I'm glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brunton. And Mr. Brunton, just so that you're aware, on the screen that I have in front of me, we have provincial appointee Willie Van Houten to the left. We have member Michael Cruz that represents Norfolk County at large. Then we have Vice Chair Kim Huffman, and as you can probably see, Christine Harrop, and our Board Secretary Teresa Olson.
Okay, yeah, I see all those pictures. I only know a few of you.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, Christine and Doug, is I'm going to open it up to the floor for questions. So I'd ask the board members if you have any questions of Mrs. Erhop or Mr. Brunton, by all means, just to put up your hand, and hopefully we can go from there. I see Vice Chair Huffman, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair Santos. Through you to Christine and Doug, thank you very much for your deputations. They were very helpful, and I'm not a very technical person, Doug, but I was able to follow along, and it makes a lot of sense what you were saying. Through this term of council, I must say the number of calls and complaints we get regarding speeding all over Norfolk County are just out of this world. It's just something that is quite a concern. And that intersection, obviously, me living in Waterford, I see that intersection quite frequently because that's the main way into Simcoe for me. And it is a very dangerous intersection. It's a very wide open intersection. And I'm quite certain that with the construction happening on the Queensway right now, there's intensification of the traffic to go around that way by Rona and the bowling alley, etc. So that certainly doesn't help any. So I would be very interested in knowing about the GIS connection, and if we're getting those reports from the police to GIS. That's a very interesting component to me. So I do support any kind of traffic calming things that we can do at that intersection and any intersections going forward, because speed and accidents have become quite a concern for all of the public. So thanks, Christine, and thanks, Doug.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Councillor Kim?
Yep.
Doug had indicated geometry. A lot of accidents are happening because people are making blind left turns.
Okay.
And because the incline, you can't always see, and I'm thinking that's happening more than not, both ways. So it's actually very scary because we do have a lot of foot traffic going through those intersections.
Yeah,
so
and that's a good
for
point
support.
too. Yeah, that's a good point, because I must say that whenever I do travel into that way, I do always see some type of pedestrian traffic as well. It's not like it's not a well utilized intersection at all for pedestrians and car traffic. So
yes, and so lights are triggered at both intersections by either traffic or someone pushing the pedestrian walk signal. The difficulty is those signals to walk across Norfolk Street are time limited. So if I'm doing all my checks to keep safe, I don't make it across in time before the yellow happens. We have seniors who walk at a slower gait, so I'm also very concerned at how quickly they can get across, but also making sure they're safe to make sure nobody's running anything.
Mr. Chairman, could I add something?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Brunton.
I've been on to this for a couple of years now, and I think the real problem, there were two accidents just before Christmas. There was one just recently, a week or so ago, and I know exactly how they happened. But when I spoke some time ago with Officer Sanchuk, I tried to talk to him about the issue, and he put me over to an Officer Fashing. This is going back some time now. And where I think a miss is here, when I spoke with Fashing, he indicated that, I said, who's keeping track of the accidents? And he thought the MTO were doing it. And being a connecting link, I'm sure the accident reports are with the OPP now, but they should be transferred to engineering and your GIS department. And we used to pin map all that stuff. And again, you just block out the names and send in the reports. So we don't care who it is. We just want to know how it happened and where. But I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just here trying to help rectify the problem. And I've seen all kinds of them like that. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Brunton. Okay, Madam Vice Chair, I'm going to go now to Member Van Houten. He has a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And to either Christine or Mr. Brunton, I have to commend you. This is dynamite report, and it's very concerning when you see the safety concerns like this. So you want to do things to certainly improve this. I was curious on right on, I call it 24 Highway on Norfolk Street. Is the traffic speeding up the same problem heading south or heading north from Queensway north, or coming back the other way?
Oh,
It's both. I know the people that have been, the two individuals who were rear-ended going into the driveway, they live at the end, if you're heading north on Norfolk Street, just before the laneway changes to the highway at 2 lanes, they
Yep.
were rear-ended making a left-hand turn into their driveway. I also know going the other way after coming through Norfolk Street going south, just as you pass the intersection of Norfolk Street North and Davis, and someone was making a left on 2nd Ave, they were rear-ended as well. I'm very concerned about the decline after you go through that intersection. There's a bus pickup at that very corner where 2nd Ave and Norfolk Street North meet, and that's where people are running the bus lights, because their speeding is a speedway. If you get green lights at Norfolk and 14th and Norfolk and Davis, they're just accelerating. And then you have that slight decline, and kids are getting on and off at that intersection at 2nd Ave, and it's atrocious. I can't imagine being a parent, seeing your kids being picked up and people running those lights.
Yeah, Christine, just from my memory, that's one road south. I guess that's one road south of Davis. It's pretty close to Davis Street, right? It's not like a full road.
Yes. Well, people from that one side of the intersection, they have their houses facing Norfolk, and their driveways are behind near Cal Tire. They use that intersection because it's so easy. When we had the overpass, the sidewalks are a little bit raised. You feel a little bit safer when the sidewalks are raised and you're away from the traffic, but they use that intersection of Norfolk and Davis just to get to the park.
Right. Okay.
So it's frequent, but yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christine. Any more questions, Member Van Houten? Member Van Houten, any other questions of Doug and Christine?
No, that's good. Thank you, Ms.
Okay. Okay, I see Member Cruz.
Yes, thank you, Christine and Doug, for a very professional deputation here. I've got a question for Inspector Scott, and I want to ask the inspector, has this area been subject to focused patrols recently? And if so, to me, it sounds like a two-part issue. One, speeding, and which can be police enforced, and the other an engineering issue with respect to lights. So I don't know, perhaps Mr. Chair, you can advise me with respect to what we do with respect to engineering issues. But again, the question to Inspector Scott, has this been subject to focus patrols, and how often?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cruz, and welcome to the board. And thank you, Christine and Doug. You've brought forward some concerns that we've been working on for some time. I know, I believe Constable Clark has spoken to you, I believe, Christine.
Yes.
And so what I can tell you is that since in both, it's not only, we don't only look at just the north. We've had similar complaints on Highway 24 South. And so from the 15th of March till the end of the year, we dedicated 28 officers for 142 hours. There was a total of 304 niche-related occurrences, and e-tickets that resulted in 202 charges, 94 warnings. Out of that, there were 11 MPCs on 24, not just specific to your area, and 8 impaired investigations were conducted, which, I would suspect most of those are in the evening as well, which alludes to traffic safety. I can tell you that, and I don't have the stats for the full year to year's end, but from the October 16th till the 24th or 24th of July of this year. So October of 2016 till the 24th of July of 2021. There's been 16 related collisions at that address, probably a little more, given the fact that you both made comment to some recent ones. I can tell you that you are correct. There are many of these are involving turning violations and failing to yield, which you've also indicated as well. I can also tell you that in your area from 24th, we've certainly tried to target people coming into Colborne Village from the north and within those areas to try and slow them down through enforcement and warnings. And there's been 40 charges laid this year with 42 warnings issued as well. You may think that warnings may not be substantive. However, since we've gone to e-ticketing, those individuals now that are speeding, if they're stopped again, the likelihood of them getting a ticket is probably increased because we now have a record of it. So I can't tell you that this your concerns have not gone unnoticed. It's been brought forward through to the Norfolk County Traffic Safety Committee that engineering does sit on, our county roads with our detachment as well. And I'm of the understanding that one of the many speed signs try and do some traffic calming that the county has purchased is to be installed in your area. Where it's installed is beyond the police control, but we have presented our findings and we believe that, you know, many of your concerns are in fact warranted. Can we enforce this problem away? I don't think so. And I would think even, you know, Mr. Cruz with his background knows that's a part of what we do. But certainly we have one of the most engaged media officers, I would suggest, in the province that has done so much public education in Norfolk County and around that I personally, you know, driver behavior is driver behavior. And it's going to come down to possibly some traffic calming strategies. And I would certainly, you know, support any efforts that the county or PSB would support to make our roadways safer. So that's, I don't know if you have any other questions of me, Mr. Cruz, or anyone else, but, you know, as Vice Chair Huffman had indicated, we have seen an increase in traffic complaints, I think in part because of the increase in call volume and our changing, you know, our the way the community's grown and sprawled and people moving out into the smaller communities. So we've got pressures all throughout the county and not just there. So, and I'm also of the understanding, I believe as well, our buses are now, I think the county participated and perhaps the county, I should know this, but I just forget, I got a lot going on. But I believe our buses now have that ability to that have video inside so that if we do get a bus violation, that's dealt with in that capacity through electronic means. And just in regards to the Doug's comments there, yes, you're correct. We do motor vehicle collision reports. However, it has changed a little bit over the years. We don't directly supply them to the county, but the county has access to those that they use for their, they have the ability to tap into that resource through the Ministry of Transport. So I don't know if I've answered your questions, or we'll continue to monitor that and continue to conduct enforcement. But that's what I know.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask Officer Scott a question?
Sure. Chief Scott, thank you very much for answering Member Cruz. So now I'll ask Mr. Brunton to go ahead and ask a question of our Chief of Police. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, Officer Scott, I don't know what's happened in the past, but we for years received those reports monthly with all the names blacked out, and we would pin map them. Now, I know you keep them for insurance claims or people that probably sue each other. I don't know, but would it be difficult to just email them to engineering or your GIS department in the county on a monthly basis, so they had a good handle on what's happening?
They
that
have, sorry, go ahead.
Is that out of line to kind of look in that direction to assist with the accident history?
It's just not the process anymore, Doug. It's the ministry had changed this process where all this information now is accessible by the municipalities for those specific reasons. And so it's no longer part of process for us to disclose those reports as we once did to insurance agencies, so on and so forth. So the process has changed. They do have access to it. We do continue, and that was one, Highway 24, unlike others in our focus patrol strategy, was part of our West Region collision reduction plan, and we look at it internally for collisions in area of high collisions. So you know, again, what may seem like a lot in certain areas, you know, we just have to balance our resources to try and effectively do enforcement. But there is a huge component to traffic calming, community engagement, which we're seeing here today with yourself. So thank you, and trying to get that feedback to allow us to do other things. So, but as Councillor Huffman and the other board members are aware, we have seen an increase in many of our small hamlets, and as a result, the county purchased several of the speed signs as an effort to take a measured response to traffic calming. But I totally understand you're on a major highway there, and it's with the influx in traffic and being so close, you're seeing, albeit I would suspect, a very high volume increase in your area. So.
Chair Santos, can I address Chief Scott regarding some of the things he's suggested for traffic calming?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So I agree that the street signs that you're talking about will bring driver awareness. But I think there's been enough research done to indicate that there needs to be more than driver awareness, because drivers already know what speed they're driving. The speed signs will tell you, and will be a gentle reminder to slow down. But there's been enough research showing that if you don't follow that up with regular enforcement, your chances of changing driver behavior is going to be very slim, because once drivers figure out those speed signs aren't matched with enforcement, it's very reluctant that they're going to change their behavior. That's my understanding. I had the opportunity to speak with a Brant County councillor, as well as the staff that was assigned to do special projects to bring ASE into that county. They had told me the reason they brought that is because they also were having speed issues. They did have those speed signs up, and they felt that they needed the enforcement. They also had shared that they had hired 2 additional OPPs just to make sure that there were regular, focused radar patrol on high areas of concern. So that's something as an additional calming measure they used to make sure that we were going to have regular, consistent enforcement. And I can tell you, drivers, once they know that there are regular radar patrols out there, they automatically slow down because they don't want to be ticketed. So I agree. We as a neighborhood are looking for any measures that you can use, but there also has to be objectives when you put your signs out. So how long are you going to keep your signs out there? How are you going to measure whether traffic is going to be slowing based on those measures? And how long are you going to be studying that? And as a neighborhood, how do we get that information from you? We can tell because we'll know if traffic's slowing down based on our walking in the neighborhood. But if we're going to move forward, we need to make sure that we're making action that can be measurable, and then we can have further discussion. Are we seeing the results that we're hoping that our measures are going to produce?
Yes,
So Christine, if I may.
Oh, go ahead. If I
Sorry,
may,
you asked a number of questions. Chief, you want to go ahead with that?
yeah, and I can't disagree. We need measurable results. When it comes to high budgetary items like additional police officers added to contracts, that's a county issue. When it comes to enhancing our workforce here, when it comes to looking at implementing even the speed measuring signs or photo radar, however that may look, those are high value ticket items. That is the county. It's a traffic calming measure. I can tell you that yes, for most people, getting a ticket slows them down. For some, it doesn't. And I've got other areas that I've worked where we have studied with the MTO, many other places, and it comes down to I can't figure out why people drive the way they do in 32 years of policing. And that is the crux of what we're faced with, is to trying to take people to take ownership for their own driving. And I can't disagree. For most, getting a ticket will slow them down. For others, not so much. So it's a part of it. But we've looked at, in areas where they've, for instance, they've gone to circles at intersections. They've seen reductions in collisions in areas. There's a variety of different traffic calming strategies, but some come with a very high price tag. So we will continue to enforce in the area as we can, utilizing not only just, your area, but we have other areas of the county to focus on. But I can tell you that traffic safety is a priority countywide. And we are working with the county on a longstanding traffic safety committee to try and identify that and balance all our needs and resources and put them in the appropriate places. So.
Thank you, Chief. Does that answer your question, Christine?
Yeah, I do want to say why I came to you instead of county council is because you have a vested interest in traffic safety. I know that you are able to make recommendations to Norfolk County Council. So I'm hoping that there will be some type of recommendation out of our presentation to council. I hope that we have a council that would seriously look at the recommendations that are coming out of the Norfolk County Police Services Board. I think they have a responsibility to consider those recommendations and to put them in effect.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions of the board to Christine or Doug? Well, Christina, I want to say as chair of the Police Services Board that 74 signatures is a very high number. These concerns definitely will be looked into, and I think what we will do as a Police Services Board is we'll prepare a deputation and we will ask Norfolk County Council to look at these recommendations that you've put forth. And I think within a month or so, you might see some action. We'll leave that up to council. I have faith that things will fall in place. What we can do is we can ask our police chief to increase enforcement in the area. And I did hear that so far this year, 40 tickets and 40 warnings. So that is very high. And so their job is being done. Now, with reference to the engineering, I think, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And hopefully with that, we could rectify that by putting forth a deputation. So I'm going to just ask Vice Chair Huffman, our best role, Vice Chair Huffman, being that you're a counselor, would be that we prepare a deputation and request and ask council. Is that correct?
Yes, certainly that would be one way to go forward. With the road safety committee that Inspector Scott was talking about, just to give you an example, I've got a constituent right now that I'm working with who wants a four-way stop. So in dealing with Mr. King on that committee, he's been a great resource to me. she started a petition. He gave the percentage of the numbers of people that we needed based on the population, and that's been submitted to him, and that will come up at their next meeting. So that's typically how I deal with my constituents that have approached me in terms of traffic issues. So there's a couple different ways to go about it, but I think in this regard, because we're speaking about the possibility of photo radar, that would be a new, something new to the county, that it would be best to come through in terms of a deputation to council.
Okay.
Chair Santos, can I add a comment?
Just one second. Sorry, Christine, just one second. Our board secretary, Madam Olson, you had your hand up, sorry?
Through the chair, I just wanted to advise I have a motion ready if when you're ready for it.
Okay. So sorry, Christine, do you want to go ahead?
The only other thing I would like you to address to council, as well as seeing the possibility of getting a bylaw going to identify Norfolk Street North as a community safety zone. My understanding with the community safety zone that there would have to be signs posted advising the community that this is a community safety zone. I understand that people who are caught speeding in a community safety zone, that fines are doubled.
Thank you very much for that information. What I will mention here is to the board members, I think we should be putting this on a high priority based on what I've heard today from Mr. Brunton and Mrs. Harrop. So if Madam Secretary Olson can go ahead with, okay, thank you.
So through the board, just based on the discussion, my suggestion would be that the board pass a resolution that the Police Service Board recommend to Norfolk County Council implementation of traffic calming devices and automated speed enforcement on Norfolk Street North. Further recommending the designation of a community safety zone in the same area. And finally, requesting a deputation to County Council on this matter, and we can specify a date or just at a future council meeting.
Madam Secretary, I think if we could, thank you very much. I think if I can put forth my 2 cents worth, if we can put a date either in March or April or February, if possible, that would be excellent. So we can prioritize this.
Mr. Chairman, that resolution mentions nothing about improvements to the intersection.
So to the board members, in reference to the resolution, do we want to add or delete what was just said by Board Secretary Mrs. Olson?
I can add that piece in if you want.
Okay. I see Member Cruz. Go ahead. Member Cruz, your mic is off. If you could turn it on, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
There we go.
In my view, I think that would be part of an overall solution to this issue. There's more offenses than just speeding there. So I certainly look at the engineering or the intersection there would seem to be appropriate at this time. To me.
Okay. If I may, to the board secretary, I mean, Mr. Brunton did mention accident history, and also, of course, with the engineering report and the GIS. So I'm just wondering if we can somehow recommend those 2 points.
Sorry, specifically, do you, so what I just added in here was improvements to the intersection at Norfolk Street North and Davis Street. You want me to write in, I guess what I just want to mention to the board is just being mindful that we can probably get you on a deputation quite quickly at a council meeting. Staff is going to need time to research this matter. So I think we could make the motion, you know, capturing high level what you're looking for, and then Chair Santos, you and I could sit down to draft the letter to go to the counties, putting all those points in that we want them to have an idea of when the deputation comes forward.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Board members, are we okay with that? Okay, very good. So if you could just, Madam Secretary Olson, if you could just repeat once again before we go to the vote.
Through the chair, that the Police Service Board recommend to Norfolk County Council to implement traffic calming devices and automated speed enforcement on Norfolk Street North, to recommend designating the area as a community safety zone, to recommend improvements to the intersection at Norfolk Street North and Davis Street, and further that the Police Service Board provide a deputation related to this matter to a future County Council meeting.
Okay. Board members, are we okay with this?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
so with that, do we have a mover? Okay, I see Member Cruz. And do we have a seconder? I see Provincial Member Van Houten. Okay, all in favor? Okay, and it's carried. So Mrs. Erhop and Mr. Brunton, thank you very much for your detailed presentation and enlightening us on Highway 24, Norfolk Street North and South, and with reference also to Davis Street. So I know that you'll be hearing from us hopefully within the next month or so, and if not, we'll be hearing from you for sure. We'll keep each other in the loop and posted, but on a short term, just to reassure you, we will continue to ask our Chief of Police to have the OPP continue with the enforcement. I mean, it's fairly clear that they have since and continue to. So we'll ask that this will continue on. Okay, so thank you once again, and we'll move on with the agenda. Thanks again, Christine and Doug. Have a great day.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, Secretary, Board Secretary Olson, yes?
Through the chair, we just need a motion to accept both deputations for information as well.
Okay. So do we have a mover? Okay, I see Mr. Van Houten's hand up. And a seconder, we have Vice Chair Huffman. Okay. And all in favor? Okay, great. And that's carried.
Brunton.
Is now exiting.
Okay, so we'll move on with the agenda. Point number 7, consent to the agenda. So if I can ask our police chief, Scott, to come back on, and hopefully we can see his face. So the consent to agenda is 7.1, the highlights of November 2021, and 7.2, the highlights of December of 2022, or sorry, December of 2021, and that being on the second page.
If I may, through you, Mr. Chair, if I may refer to the December report, it's really more fulsome, more year-end than the December one that we did have some issues with our statistical data given the timing of the meeting and to save perhaps some time. But if you wish me to go through the one in November, it's pretty much the same. I'll leave that to you, to your discretion.
Actually, I'm in agreement, Mr. Chair. Chief, I'm in agreement that the correspondence of January the 17th of 2022 onward, so that is reference to page 1 of 18. So if you want to focus on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to start off with, this is the report for December of 2021. Just regards to our overtime allocations, you'll see the notation there. Our December values for overtime spent in 2021, just because of our year end, and again the timing will be reported on next board meeting. But I can tell you that I would suggest that we will come under the overtime allotment contract, given those numbers and given some of our caseload in 2021. Our auxiliary policing hours for the month of December was at 49. We're continuing to try and get our auxiliary officers refreshed in their training, and we again have, due to Omicron and some various other that we're all dealing with, it's impacted our auxiliary hours, which is unfortunate. But you have to understand that these are volunteer members, and to put them at risk doing a volunteer job, which is very valued, could certainly impact their ability to perform their duties, their full-time jobs. You've also made mention of the Crime Stoppers report, and I'll leave that with you just for your perusal. Our locally dedicated overtime hours, unless there's any questions in relation to that, you can see that we're missing December. Again, the majority of our overtime this year, came as a result of some major events. We did have PD 13. We've had some rather significant criminal branch investigations and other issues to meet operational needs. As far as our police board analytical report, board monitored issues, ride, we had 41 ride checks conducted in December for a total of 183 this year. And we did and are continuing with the ride grant program. Again, our seatbelt initiatives were at 50 this year. Our law enforcement activities, again, some of our, because we've been transitioning through into our e-tickets, my anticipation is, and just for Mr. Cruz awareness, the OPP just within the last 2 years has been in a transition into the electronic tickets. Prior to that, we were still on the old ticketing system where it went through ICON and various things. So now we're getting a more fulsome, we have the ability to do more analytics in relation to traffic studies. We can monitor warnings more effectively to then subsequently issue tickets in a more educated and fair measure. We have seen a slight increase in some of our tickets. Our enforcement activities. We've had significant learning curves at our detachment with our many new recruits. So that takes our full-time officers off the road a bit to do coaching duties as well. You'll see there with our traffic and non-traffic criminal code, those stats have been impacted on our ability to pull them through the courts and ICON. So that remains a challenge for us. And you can see the other stats as there. Again, this has been a unique year as trying to deal with some of our statistical data collection, just in relation to the impacts the courts have had, and so on and so forth. Unless there's any questions in relation to some of these statistics, I can go right to the 911 calls and address that, unless there's any other questions in relation to bylaw incidents, driver license suspension, and alarms.
So are there any questions to the board or from the board to our chief?
No.
Chief, I have 3 questions with regards to the numbers. So the board members, I'll start off with page 6 of 18 of the January the 17th, 2022. The top of the page says Ontario Provincial Police Board monitored issues the RIDE program. So what I'd like to understand here, Chief, is are you referring to December of 2021, there were 41 rides or there were 41 charges of impaired?
41 ride programs.
Okay, so there are 41 ride programs.
Correct.
And do we have a number of people that were charged with impaired?
We usually do, don't we?
And I'm just looking on the same page.
Yeah.
There is no number for the month of December.
For which one there, Mr. Chair?
So just following down, Chief, where it says traffic related charges, the month of December is clear and it says impaired. It's open a total of 161 up until November.
Yes, because that some of our stats through December they haven't been able to draw them out. That's all. That's what I can say.
Okay. The reason I asked that question is, of course, I want to make sure that these rides are effective, and I know they are.
Yes.
They're a great education tool, but also a great net in catching impaired drivers.
I can't tell you that we've seen an increase through statistical or other methods that we have seen an increase in our impaired driving charges here, including our impairment by drug. And we've had these discussions at previous meetings, and that continues to be a focus of ours and a priority to crack down on impaired drivers. And we're hoping to get some training, some additional training for Office for Drug Recognition experts in Norfolk County. So some of those training issues have been impacted through COVID as well and interrupted. So having the appropriate people trained to do some of the like breath techs and drug recognition experts has been impacted somewhat from COVID, but something organizationally we continue to push forward on.
Okay. And thank you very much, Chief. And also on page 14 of the same document, this was definitely, when I looked at the numbers, I was just flabbergasted. On page 14, sexual assaults, there's been an increase of 34%.
Oh, Mike, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was still on the board related,
Oh, sorry.
issues, if I could, and I know Vice Chair Huffman had some questions about 911 calls. So my apologies, I am getting to those other additional pages.
Okay, sorry.
So on the 911 calls, Councillor Vice Chair Huffman, did you have any questions in relation to those 911 calls?
Thank you, Inspector Scott. It was basically just a follow-up and just to kind of have a discussion regarding it. I was aware that there was a media report that 911 calls had increased, and to frivolous 911 calls, not legitimate ones. And I know that this is actually a trend all over Ontario right now. But I mean, for heaven's sakes, I just can't blame everything on the pandemic. People have got to be a little bit smarter going forward. So I know that a while ago, part of this, the mandate of this police services board was to institute the fines and things like that. Are we finding that those are helping? Is there anything that we can do in terms of Officer Sandchuk doing, some social media blitz kind of things, just to get a handle on so that we don't get those 911 calls going through the roof again. And wasting valuable resources, I may add.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair, and through you, Mr. Chair. What I can report on is that the OPP has implemented at our comm center the 911 call diversion. So automatically, unless it meets the threshold of an absolute emergency, an integrated response, officers, there's more investigation and more questions asked at our provincial comm center. So over this past year, from a provincial perspective, through this initiative, the OPP has reallocated over 174,661 hours back to frontline policing. In the West, which we are part of, they've reallocated over 34,566 hours back to frontline policing. Just to put that into perspective, this came into effect and was implemented through 2020 into 2021. So if we go back to 2016 in Norfolk County, we had 2,093 911 hang-ups, 911 calls. In 2017, we had 2,047. In 2018, we had 2,001. In 2019, we had 3,734. In 2020, at the time this program began, we saw a reduction. We had 486 911 calls and 522. And I would suggest that out of some of those dropped calls and non-specified, they will have just been dealt with by the officer, perhaps through a phone call, or just otherwise dictated and not taking a lot of their time. So I think we are trending in the right direction from an entire organization. And yes, there's more to do. And Officer Sanchuk does a great job. Where you've maybe heard those releases, we have seen a local spike on occasion, and he sets out to remind people to use 911 appropriately. So I think we are trending in the right direction. That's significant decreases, and it's freed up our officers to go and do more impactful duties.
Thank you very much for those stats and stuff. And we definitely are trending in the right direction. I just want to make sure that as a community, we continue to stay on top of it and remind people of the importance of using it, you know, for the right reasons. So those stats are great. I love good numbers like that.
Yeah, I do too. Just to move on, I've report on our foot patrol hours. Overall, in our main areas, our smaller little urban centers. Obviously, Simcoe will see a little more hours because of some of the ongoing issues and concerns there, the populace. We do try to balance those hours out as best we can amongst our calls for service. I'll speak to one particular foot patrol effort for the Simcoe Panorama, which saw a little bit of an increase in Simcoe during those hours. When I report on collisions here momentarily, I can tell you that our collision reporting program is working very well here. Just kind of for the year 2021, which is really the first year, we've seen 312, which equates to 35% of our collisions being able to be diverted to our collision reporting center in Simcoe here at the detachment. And that again frees up officer time and hours, and moves forward from there. Any questions in relation to those few things? Okay, so again, when we speak to focus patrols, we had several requests in relation to focus patrols in relation to COVID-19. We certainly supported our health unit with some of the vaccine clinic locations that in other areas saw, I guess, a different public response to the overall vaccine efforts, which we didn't have any real issues to note here in regarding any public safety concerns. I think a few of those we were able to work with our county through our partnership, and we were able to come up with last minute plans to ensure that the public had access to vaccines. We kept the roads safe, and we averted any public order or traffic related issues. We continue to do cottage watch in our vacation areas, in our seasonal areas along the lake and elsewhere. We closed the focus patrol for the Simcoe Panorama that we did in December. 8 officers dedicated 9 hours to that, and I would anticipate that's just focus patrols. There's additional vehicle patrols. You can't go downtown without passing that place, and there were no significant calls for service. in relation to that. I commented again on our traffic focus patrols in relation to our West Region Collision Reduction Plan. I've already commented on Highway 24. We also conducted one on Highway 3 from the 15th of March till the 31st of December last year. 29 officers dedicated 157.75 hours. 296 incidents were created. There were 186 charges, 100 warnings, 17 motor vehicle collisions were reported, and 4 impaired investigations were conducted through these proactive efforts. We had another identified area on Highway 59. Again, 21 officers dedicated 74 hours, giving a total of 204 events created, resulting in 122 charges, 64 warnings, 30 motor vehicle collisions were reported, and 4 impaired investigations were conducted. Just a wrap up on the Brantford Road as part of our West Region Collision Reduction Plan. 17 officers dedicated 64.75 hours for a total of 266 related events, resulting in 176 charges, 91 warnings, 7 motor vehicle collisions were reported, and 5 impaired investigations were conducted. As we move through, and I'll make note in the overall collisions in a moment, we are currently underway for the planning for the May 22 PD13 event. Just more of an information note. That continues and is ongoing in its preliminary stages. And if I may, I'll go to the violent crime and property crime related stats, unless there's any questions thus far. As noted previously, Mr. Chair, we saw an increase in sexual assaults. Most of these assaults, however, were historic in nature, and we do see these spikes from time to time. Unfortunately, it's not a spike we like to see, but for the most part, they are historic in nature. And another significant note, we did see a total of 19% increase in some of our violent crimes. And I will suggest that when you look at the assaults and some of these other crimes where we have breaches of certain conditions resulting in other crimes, I think in fact COVID doesn't play a little bit of part in some of this, but certainly, as Councillor Huffman says, not all. We have seen a considerable reduction in property crime. We're down 24% overall. I'll provide a nice overview of our street crimes unit, and I think you can see why we're having some of the impact that we do in relation to that, those numbers as well. I'll also make comment on the actual drug component in the report from street crimes, and I'll go on to the collision types. Unfortunately, we have this year seen a 250%, which is from 2 in 2020 to 7 last year in our fatal collisions. Unfortunately, there's always a myriad of factors in those, some being preventable, others not, and some being by impairment. So there are a few mitigating circumstances in that capacity. On a good news story, we've seen a 15% reduction in our personal injury collisions, which I think shows to the benefit of some of our focus patrols on our main thoroughfares and some of our other focus patrols we've done in isolated areas throughout the year. And our property damage, we have seen an 18% increase in those from 2020 to 2021. I would suggest that certainly the increase in traffic in and through and around Norfolk County has played a part in some of that. But having our collision reporting center, I spoke of the value of that to try and mitigate some of those calls for service as well. So unless there's any other questions, I can speak to the reports for the crime unit, the community street crime unit.
Actually, Chief, if I may, just before you get to the crime unit report, I'm just on page 16 in reference to the fatals, 7 fatals.
Yes.
I mean, there's an increase of 5, of course, from the year prior. And I note that on the following page, page 17 of 18, that one factor was speed, where speeding was a contributing factor to one accident. So what were the other factors? Are we talking alcohol, drugs, or?
We've seen all of it, and I can certainly attest to in my career. You always look at speeding, you look inattentiveness. Sometimes people with suffering some certain mental conditions or illnesses. There's a myriad of factors here. I apologize that this is one of those. I'm not a fan of this, the way it comes out like this, but that's what I have to work with. I have looked at other analytics in relation to this locally, and it's come down to anything from moving violations, turning movements, impaired driving, excessive speed, driver experience, inattentiveness. So it's really across the board. I wouldn't say that impaired driving is the sole cause, but certainly it's there, and as well as impairment by drug. But certainly all those combined contribute to our overall collision numbers. So although not all result in fatal collisions, some do result in some serious personal injury collisions, which we have been able to see a decrease in. So I think when you combine everything, all the efforts of our enforcement that we've been able to do with the messaging that Ed Sanchuk's been able to do, I think we are having an impact, but we always have to keep trying to push the stakes forward. And I totally agree with that.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I just find that number very high, because I know when we last met in December at our board meeting, the number was at 4, then went to 5, and now, of course, being 7. So that just caught my attention. But thanks for the explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, I'll provide you a little summary, and just so you're aware as well. When we speak of our traffic efforts and those and our initiatives that we try and put forth for traffic safety, we had some nice support from our West Region time team, which are our officers that come down from our traffic units, and they completed they assisted with four focus patrols, 3 that are ongoing. They dedicated over 75 hours last year. They issued over 35 offenses and provided 11 warnings. And they also assisted with, as experts in investigations to serious and fatal collisions in 15 related calls. So we are getting some good support from outside our county and from our regional assets, just so you're aware of that. When you look at the, as you know, our Haldeman Norfolk, we have a Haldeman Detachment Norfolk combined community street crime unit to address property and drug related crimes. I'll just comment on, although there's I think it's important for you to know that our officers are back and forth in both municipalities, doing our best to try and mitigate some of the high priority issues in relation to opioid drugs, other firearms, weapons, and a variety of street level crimes. But I'll just to give you an idea, and kudos to the Haldeman Detachment officers when they do work here. In 2021, our Norfolk Detachment Community Street Crime Unit, they executed 5 drug-related offense warrants. They executed 41 criminal code-related warrants for a variety of things, and 2 Cannabis Act warrants, several production orders, several arrest warrants for high threat to individuals, totaling 60 warrants and judicial processes. That takes a lot of time to do those. There's a lot of work that goes into obtaining a judicial authorization to conduct a search. As a result of their efforts, 48 charges in relation to trafficking in a variety of narcotics and illegal substances, 14 charges in relation to possession of drugs and related illegal substances, and a variety of other charges in relation to drugs and various things, totaling 136 charges. Their drug seizures totaled $102,964 in street value. With just to give you some perspective, the leader in their chart in what they were seizing was fentanyl at a street value approximately $72,000, and cocaine was next with $18,000 with an estimated street value. And in the top, to round out the top three, unfortunately, methamphetamine at $12,000 estimated street value. Their cannabis seizures, these came from warrants in relation to high-level cannabis investigations, resulted in $294,000 approximately in cannabis seizures. I'll speak to property in a minute. They arrested over 81 people. They seized approximately $13,000 in cash and related cash resulting from proceeds of crime, and which was considered evidence in their investigation. And for a total of investigations that they were actively involved with was 1,356 active investigations. I can tell you their investigations are very complex, to say the least, and they do an amazing job at that. The Norfolk detachment is in relation to property seizures. They recovered over $139,000 in offense-related property, anywhere from trailers to vehicles to lawn tractors and heavy equipment. In vehicles alone, they seized $51,000 in stolen vehicles. And related weapons, they seized approximately 3. That ranged from anything from brass knuckles and knives, sort of thing, to put in perspective for you. And they seized 2 firearms, one which included a .38 caliber pistol. So I think certainly the efforts and impact that our street crimes unit is having, I would say that what we do in Norfolk and what Haldeman does in Haldeman, we've seen, I won't go through the Haldeman stats, it's not my place to do so, but certainly those combined efforts are trying to curb the efforts of street crime in our area just by the mere jurisdiction of how we're located. So unless there's any questions, that's my report.
Thank you, Chief Scott. Any questions from the board? I see Member Cruz.
I just want to say, Inspector Scott, that's very impressive, the amount of work that's coming out of your officers there, and great work from them, both traffic and street crime. I know that criminals don't have any borders, so obviously the crime between, say, Norfolk County, Haldeman County, Brant County, is there some sort of coordination that goes on with respect to, say, your street crime investigations?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you, Mr. Cruz. Our community street crime unit, there's a unit in every detachment in West Region. We, just because of our size, we are partnered with Haldeman Detachment, but we coordinate a multitude of efforts with Elgin Street Crime, the Street Crimes Unit in Oxford, Brant. Our office are at times deployed provincially to assist with large project takedowns. There's times when we lead large project takedowns. There's a connect there. There's oversight through our Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau, in this case out of London and West Region. And so there's some oversight as well through our West Region Crime Management as well. So there's some links back into our crime unit. I can tell you with, although I don't have the numbers readily available, when we look at our overdoses in relation to opioid deaths and various things, there is a link then into our criminal investigative branch, depending on the circumstances surrounding the death, and then back through our crime unit, and then quite often our street crime unit. because they have the knowledge base as to who's involved in that criminal element in the subculture. And quite often it branches over into our mobilization and engagement officer who's out there and has a very good knowledge of those in our vulnerable sector, those that are having challenges in relation to addictions, and links back to our variety of multitude of partners in housing, social services, mental health, and so on. So it's actually, just for your background, it was something that was sort of spearheaded here many years ago by former detachment commanders, and it's evolved into what it's been today. And it's a very effective unit that we have here in Norfolk.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Inspector Scott.
Thank you, Chief. And just to let member Cruz know that being that we're under Section 10 policing, we of course have the OPP borderless policing. So a lot of the times we'll see our members in Oxford, we'll see them in Brant or Haldeman. So this works to our benefit, and that's one of the great things of having the OPP looking after Norfolk County for sure. So with that, do we have any other questions of Chief Scott? If not, I just want to say, Chief, thank you very much for the updates and the reports. And if you could just let your officers know that we're very appreciative of the work that they do each and every day while we're sleeping and they're out keeping us safe and protecting us. We appreciate it. Keep up the good work. If you can send that through. And with that, I'll ask, we could either take a 10-minute break before we continue with the agenda, if that's okay. Secretary Olson, is that fine? And to the members of the board, if we could take a 10-minute break. It's now 10:57, if that's okay, before we continue on.
So we'll be back at 11:10 then?
Yes, please, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome to Passionate Folks, a blog and video series about people who live in Norfolk. People that get involved in our community, people that are passionate about living here. We sit down, have a conversation, and learn about their stories. Welcome to Passionate Folks. I am Emily. I love to connect with people. I love to ask questions and get to know people better. So today I'm sitting here with Scott. Hey.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So Scott, to start, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and where you live?
My name's Scott McCrae. I am a chef here in Norfolk County. I'm the chef at David's Restaurant in town, and I live in Port Dover, or just outside. And yeah, all my family lives in Port Dover. I moved here in high school and left for a bit and moved back, and now
Made it your home.
Made it my home. Yeah, it was my home before. I realized it was my home while I was away, and yeah.
Came back to the roots.
Yes, exactly.
So as I do with every guest, I ask you to pick a place in Norfolk County for us to do this interview.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me where you invited me and why you picked this place.
Well, we're here at Matt's Fruit Barn, just outside of town, and it was a pretty easy choice. I know we wanted something that was kind of related to what I do. We were talking about how diverse Norfolk County is as far as things that grow here, and It's like #1 for so many different fruits and vegetables. And one of the first things I always think about is just, especially considering what job I have, is food. Norfolk County produces so much food and grows so much food. This property here that Christine and Jess and the family have, kind of, they grow more things here than I can even think of. Like, you look
It's a
around
good
and
representation of Ontario's garden when
Exactly.
you visit this place, isn't it?
yeah, this is kind of just like a little example of what this area has to offer.
So I love to dig in people's passion and see what lights them up. And I'd love to know about you. I think I may have a little bit of an idea, but what are you most passionate about?
That's a tough one. I think definitely I'm passionate about food and what I do. That's something that since I was young, I've always associated memories. Like a lot of people with songs or with like smells or things, it'll just trigger a memory. And a lot of my early childhood memories have to do with food. There'll be a weird little thing that I remember, like, oh, that was my first like black olive I ever had, or that was like, there's a lot of memories that kind of are associated with that.
Big connections to
Big
food
ones,
and
yeah. Like
stories.
the mulberry tree in my grandparents' backyard, and we just stand for hours underneath just like eating mulberries. And
So I know you work long hours. It's a busy season for you in the restaurant. When you have some downtime, where do you like to go in Norfolk? Where do you like to have a good time?
Well, I'm lucky that all my family lives here. I moved away for a while. I moved to the city. I was in Yukon for a bit. Just being back and being able to see family is I don't get to see them enough still, but it's definitely a big reason why I came back and something I like to do. Friends too, you know, just hanging out on local patios or at their house or watching Leafs games. Well, I've always been kind of, from my grandma when I was a kid, I got really into like birds. Yeah, so I mean, there's binoculars in the truck right now with the bird
Like
book.
go to Long Point or what?
Well, of course, like that's Long Point. Well, around here, like I'm lucky I live out of town. You can drive out and see the tundra swans at Long Point when they come through. It's really a mecca for that if you're into that. I'm a bit of a weird, obsessive record collector, and I've got a lot of records.
Do you like to see live music around? Is there
of course.
decent bands that are around that you like to?
Oh, tons. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's great. I mean, like a lot of my friends are musicians, and there's not a ton of downtime, but when there is, it's like sometimes just things that are just nice and relaxing. It always helps when you have like a local brewery.
And there's a lot to pick from, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of great ones. It's really exploded, especially since I moved back from Toronto about 10 years ago, and even in that time, it's the wine scene, the beer scene, the ciders, like all that has just exploded, and it's all really good. Like,
So do you think, like, just back to the winery and the brewery, like, you know, after high school and when you wanted to leave and get to the city and get out of here and coming back and finding it like right here?
Well, even when I originally moved back, I was intending on going back to the city, and I came back and just realized that this is where I wanted to be. This is where my heart is. This is where I really belong, and I have friends there, but the friends that I have here are friends I've had since I was like in high school, right? So there's something there where
We live in a pretty cool place.
Yeah, it's great.
I thank you so much for your time. I love connecting with you and learning about your passions, so I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks.
Welcome to episode 6 of Passionate Folks. This is a vlog and video series about the people of Norfolk. We sit down, have a conversation, hear about their passion and what lights them up. I'm excited to introduce the next guest. Welcome to Passionate Folks. My name is Emily. I love to connect with people, having some conversation and learning about people's passion. Today I'm sitting here with Sue. Hey Sue.
Yeah, you bet.
I'm so glad that you took the time to come out and have a conversation with me.
Well, thanks for asking me.
Yeah, so for people that don't know you, can you start with introducing yourself, where you live, where you're from, and a little bit more about you?
Okay, sure. My name is Sue Downs. I live in Simcoe, born and raised here. And I work for the Simcoe Reformer newspaper and started there way back in 1988. So, and love my job, love Norfolk County, and was really pleased that Emily asked me to be part of this. I think.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. Yeah, so far, so good.
Great. So, as always, Sue, I ask a guest to pick a location so we can explore it and discover a hidden gem in Norfolk County. And this one is a little bit different. So, tell me where we are and why you brought me here.
So, we're at Norfolk County Fair. We're at the bottom of the Junior Farmers Building here.
So, why did you pick the fair? What's so special about the fair to you?
I think for myself, Norfolk County Fair is like one of the largest events that happen in Norfolk County every year. It's always been near and dear to my heart. Like I think so many childhood memories. It's all about tradition. For us growing up, at my age, I've only missed one fair in all of my years, and that was when I was in Timmins. So I just love the fact that you can come to the fair. There's so much excitement. There's always lots of things to see and do. Like family would come home during Thanksgiving weekend, and I think that still happens today, right? Like it's all about tradition and all about community, which I feel like I'm pretty passionate about.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask you a little bit more about your passion. I see you a lot being involved in the community and supporting local businesses, and it seems like it's really important to you and close to your heart.
I like to promote local as much as possible. So whenever we go out for dinner, a lot of people go, do you ever stay home? Because you'll constantly see posts on social media, on Facebook or on Twitter, and it's like, you know, we're at the Barrel, we're doing this, we're at Long Point Eco Adventure, we're, you know.
It's so good that you're taking the time to promote those local businesses and support. And I remember when I started my business, you were one of the big supporter of sharing what I was doing. And I know a lot of people have felt the love that you give to entrepreneurs. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome, but it does make you feel good, and it is important. I feel that, you know, if we can, you know, support each other as much as possible, like it's again, it's all about giving back.
So Norfolk County and specifically Simcoe has changed quite a lot. We are moving in a different direction in our county. So from you like growing up in Simcoe and in the downtown, and what's happening around now, like what's the highlights for you?
Okay, well, the highlight growing up was always, you know, going downtown on the weekend. People that are watching this that are my age would remember you used to be able to go to the Tartan restaurant and Woolworths and different places down there. But I think a lot of the exciting thing that I see now is a lot of the collaborations that are happening within Norfolk County. And one that stands out is, you know, Burning Kiln and then Long Point Eco. And then along came, you know, my buddy Dusty and the guys from Hometown Brew. And then now Joy Cafe out there. So it's really cool to see a lot of the business people working with each other and stuff like that too. So that sort of stuff.
You don't have to go too far. You show up there and everything that you love is right there.
It's like a lot of renewed, you know, it just seems like a lot of positive things are happening within our community, and it's really good to see.
So I know you have a pretty high stress job. So maybe tell me a little bit more about what you do to relax, calm down, and look after yourself.
Okay, well, I do like to garden. I find that, you know, if you're kind of stressful in a stressful day, you get out there and take it out on all the weeds in your garden. I also like to, you know, walk along the trail from Davis Street and then head out along the 14th or whatever. And you can, like, it's heading right towards Waterford, so you can actually walk from there right into Waterford. I've got a dog that keeps me pretty busy, and then a group of like really good friends that we are going out with each other like all the time and stuff like that.
I know you have a lot of favorite spots in Norfolk, so we already named a few, but if you have a day off and you want to explore Norfolk County, is there one specific place that you actually love to visit that you feel just at home?
I would say for myself, it depends on the day. So if it's just something that I want to go and like, you know, do a walk or whatever, it would be my trail on the 14th because it is kind of private. There's not, you do run into a lot of the same people and stuff like that. I also like going down to Dover, and I'll sit at the cafe and kind of look around there.
People watch a little bit?
Yeah, you know, that sort of stuff, and then even take off and go to the pier. Actually, my mom has a bench there for my grandfather, who was a fisherman down in Port Dover.
Okay.
Just one sec, Chair. I'm just waiting for IT to confirm we're live.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we are live now, Chair Santos.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Secretary, and we're back from our break. It is now 11:10, and we'll move on to our agenda. 7.3, letter of support from our Member of Parliament in Haldeman, Norfolk, Leslyn Lewis, on page 35. So if I can ask everyone to turn to page 35. Page 35 is a memo from our board secretary. So I think it's pretty clear. We've all had the opportunity to read that. We also have the letter that I prepared. Now, just for our board member secretary, I don't have here a copy of Leslyn Lewis's letter. Or is it just me?
Through the chair, it was on the virtual agenda. It should have been part of what you got, so I apologize if it wasn't there. But it was provided on the agenda, I believe, that was sent out to members.
I believe so, yes.
You have it? Okay. Yeah, sorry, unfortunately, I don't have mine here, but okay.
I can read it into the record if you'd like.
If you could, please, and thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just give me 1 second.
And of course, this is in reference to the cannabis loopholes.
Through
Letter of
you, Mr.
support.
Chair, I think it's page 56, I think.
Yeah, page 56, 57. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry, you're right. Page 56.
So I don't need to
That's
read
correct.
it then?
No,
Thank you.
that's okay, Board Secretary Olson. Thank you, Chief Scott, for that. So my question to our board is this. I haven't heard any response back from the minister's office, and I just want to confirm that through our board secretary, Madam Olson. Have we received any correspondence of any?
Through Chair Santos, to my knowledge, to this date, our clerk's office has not received a response back on this matter.
Okay. So making note to that, what is our next action plan with regards to the cannabis loopholes? It's a very serious issue. This is an issue that's been plaguing us here in Norfolk County. It's been plaguing pretty well everyone in the province and all provinces and territories and the whole of Canada. So I'm just wondering from a Norfolk County perspective, because this is definitely high concern to the Police Services Board and to a number of members of our county, what will our next action be? Vice Chair Huffman, any ideas?
Thank you, Chair. I have received some correspondence from a few constituents, and this has gone out to all of council. They just would have received it in the last 24 hours or so. There has been some discussion about bringing some things back to council just to keep this in the forefront. I would most likely see a motion coming forward that this is on an upcoming agenda. There are still some discussions regarding the permitting of hoop houses. That's something that's still in the forefront. I know that based on our last statistics from Mr. Milson in bylaw, there have been a substantial number of infractions charged and people no longer growing, but it's definitely something that we need to keep our fingers on the pulse of. It's definitely not something that has been eradicated, and we still need to be very watchful of what's going on in our community.
Okay. I would call this a crisis. I myself would use that word now, and it's a big crisis. And the concern that I have here to the board members, Vice Chair Huffman, and to all the board members and our OPP is, how many letters do we have to send to the Minister of Health to get their attention up in Ottawa? 3 letters, and we have no response. That's concerning. I see.
I mean, it certainly is
Provincial appointee,
concerning. I mean, obviously, I have
sorry.
no control over that. And it's nice to know that our MP has stepped in and supported this issue.
Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. Provincial appointee Van Houten, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I agree it is very concerning as well. I see that the letter dated from our local MP is from January 6th. I just wondered if maybe you could have some contact with the office to see if she's had any response yet, and then we maybe have further information for our next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Member Van Houten. Just so that everybody is aware, in my last conversation with our Member of Parliament, it was my understanding that the House returns on the 31st of January, the House of Commons, and she could definitely bring this up at the House of Commons. The concern that I have, of course, is we have numerous issues that aren't being addressed. One, of course, we don't have any investigators down our neck of the woods or pretty well out and about. And I know with tobacco, and I know we're talking about cannabis, but I know with tobacco, that hasn't made a difference. My understanding is the investigations with regards to tobacco continue on and the inspections continue on, but with reference to cannabis, nothing's been happening from a federal perspective. So I'm just wondering to the board members if we need to possibly send a letter directed to the Prime Minister and get his attention, or should we just hold off until we hear back from our Member of Parliament? Okay, I see Member Cruz.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I believe we should go back to our Member of Parliament and everything that should be done through the Member of Parliament, so that that member is in the loop and that she can on the 31st of January or subsequently after, she can raise it in the House, get some attention that way, and at least we should say to the member that we have not had any response, not even a confirmation that they received it. So that, in my view, should go through the Member of Parliament, keeping the member in the loop.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Member Cruz. Vice Chair Huffman, go ahead.
Actually, that was exactly what I was going to say. So that was perfect. I think we should stick with the chain of command and follow through with our Member of Parliament and let her continue to be the leader of this communication.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. So what I will do then is through our Board Secretary Olson is if we can have a deputation, or it's not a deputation, but I will make some communication, either a personal communication or a written letter to our Member of Parliament advising her of our stance as the Norfolk County Police Services Board, and hopefully she could be our voice and bring this up on January the 31st of 2022 at the House of Commons in Ottawa. So Board Olson, with regards to that, we might want to have a mover and a seconder to that. If that's okay with the board members, does that sound about right? That's what I've heard here. Okay.
I'll move.
Okay, so we have a mover. Member Cruz, seconded by Vice Chair Huffman. All in favor? Carried. Very good. Secretary Olson, is that okay? Did you catch that? Yes, sorry.
Sorry, through the chair. Yes, I did.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we'll wait till we get further correspondence from our Member of Parliament, and as soon as we have that correspondence, I'll make sure that we forward it through to the board members, and we can go from there. So moving on, if there's no other questions or concerns, items for consideration. 9.1, Chair Santos update, read the retirement of the police chief. So what I will do is I'll ask Chief Scott to come on, please and thank you, and announce your retirement for 32 years of service with the OPP. So the floor is yours, my friend. A great career.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations, Mr. Chair, on your appointment, and to you, Vice Chair Huffman, and welcome to the board again, Mr. Cruz. And Willie, you're always the cornerstone there, and certainly I know Mayor Chop is not in attendance, but I'd like to collectively thank you. It's been my pleasure working with you for just a little over the last year. Last December, I had the opportunity to come back here to fill in for Inspector Varga. Certainly, at that time, I didn't have any intent to retire, but certainly as the years progressed, in discussions with my family and various things, I thought, you know what, I think 32 years is about right. And I've had the opportunity to finish my career where I started. And so I'd like to thank you for that, having some patience with me and my learning curve again, getting back into the groove here. And again, thank you. Hopefully I've made a small impact in Norfolk County. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chief Scott. On behalf of the Norfolk County Police Services Board and Norfolk County, we appreciate your 32 years of service with the OPP. What I've found over the last year and a bit, you have strong moral characters, you have a devotion to community, to the service, to the OPP, and of course, the OPP family and your family also. The motto, of course, has been in policing over the last number of decades that you have served and protected us for many years. Now it's time to be served and protected. Congratulations on the years of service. And the Norfolk Police Services Board once again would like to thank you and wish you well. If any member of the board wishes to put forth a comment, you're more than open to, so I'll leave the floor open. If anyone wishes to make any other comments, I see Provincial Appointee Willie Van Houten. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you,
Member
Mr.
Van Houten.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Chief Scott, I thought you were way too young to retire yet. It was a real pleasure working with you over the last year. And I want to just thank you so much for all you've done. And I certainly wish you and your family a happy retirement. Thank you so much. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you again. Vice Chair Huffman.
Thank you, Chair Santos, through you to Inspector Scott. It's been great to get to know you and work with you over the past year and a bit. It was nice that you were able to kind of come full circle and finish your career where you started. I'm sure that was a nice sense of accomplishment. I know that the men and women of your detachment, I'm certain, will miss you greatly, as will the community. So again, I think you're way too young to retire, but hey, what do I know? So anyways, I think you will enjoy your retirement, and hopefully COVID restrictions lighten up soon so you can enjoy your retirement to the fullest. So be safe and enjoy. Thanks a lot, Rob.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Member Cruz.
Inspector Scott, we have not met yet, but I know policing is a tough career, but a good career, and I know that you're going to enjoy your retirement. It's fabulous. Just enjoy yourself, stay safe, and I know that you'll keep in touch with your police family probably until the day you're no longer here. But it is a pleasure to have met you virtually, and I hope to meet you physically at some point in the future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Board Member Cruz. Just so that everyone's aware, we still have Chief Scott till Valentine's Day. So he's not free up until February the 14th. So by all means, we continue to look forward to working with him up until the official date of retirement. So once again, thank you. Being that there's no, Board Secretary Olson, go ahead.
Through the chair. Before we move on, we will just need a motion to accept the announcement for information, please.
Okay, thank you. So I see Vice Chair Huffman's has moved. Do we have a seconder? Okay, I see Provincial Appointee Van Houten seconded. Okay, all in favor? Okay, it's carried. Thank you very much, Chief, again. Moving on to 9.2. One of very little things that we as a board could do under Section 10 policing, of course, is we are mandated to be involved with regards to the recruitment of a new police chief. So I just want to read out that Section 10, subsection 9A, provides that the PSB shall participate in the selection of the detachment commander of the detachment assigned to our municipality, which of course is Norfolk County. So I think it might be in our best interest to send a letter to Aurelia to advise that we do and would like to be a part of the participation. So if that is the case, which I think should be and is, we should have a motion. And I would ask someone to put forth a mover and a seconder.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I know it's not my place to interfere with the process of the board, but perhaps I could just provide a little update in relation to the process. And if you wish to continue on that path, please feel free. So just for clarity, Inspector Varga, this position isn't in essence vacant. Inspector Varga is still on another assignment. At such time as Inspector Varga, should he move on, then the position would become vacant, and then the OPP would then coordinate, as you've said, at least under the current process, the PSA, to the board would have input. They would provide a selection of a pool of candidates, and then the board would then have input into that interview process along with West Region Command staff. I have yet to receive notice. There will be somebody put in my place as an interim capacity so that there is leadership at the detachment. But as far as filling that vacancy, it may be just a little premature until it's determined whether Inspector Varga will return to the office after his assignment or whether he'll continue on elsewhere in the organization. The knowledge of that, I don't know the status of that at this time. So I don't know if that adds some clarity to it. Perhaps we can have a discussion afterwards, just as a more of once I hope to know who my successor is here, whether it's Joe coming back or not. And then through you, I can inform you of that, and then you can inform the board. I don't know if that's of assistance, but again, I apologize for the interruption.
Thank you, Chief. No problem with the interruption. I mean, we appreciate the clarity because of course, under Section 10 policing, our hands are tied on a number of issues, but this issue, of course, is a big issue. And based on what you've said, I think we'll follow that, but I'll leave that up to the board. Any comments? I know, oh, sorry, Provincial Appointee Van Houten, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I very much support the comments that were made by Chief Scott. That was actually one of my questions, was in relationship to Chief Varga and how this all works through. So I think I agree with you that we should take the recommendation as described by Chief Scott.
I agree with that.
I agree as well.
Okay.
And I
See that we have.
Sorry, if
Sorry.
I may.
Go ahead, Chief.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, I think it'd be, if you were to relay correspondence in relation to the command staff at Norfolk, that it'd be directed to Chief Superintendent Dwight Thibb at West Region Command, because he would be the one through his command team in West Region that would make that determination, would ultimately be deferred to him as well, so.
Okay, thank you, Chief, for the update. So being that we have a consensus from the board, I'll leave Board Secretary Olson. We're going to need a mover and a shaker, or a mover and a seconder in that regard.
I'll shake.
Yeah, sorry.
Through the chair, if I may just clarify, is the board then simply receiving this discussion for information at this time, and I'll keep these notes on file for when we get to replacement? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would think so, Madam Secretary. It would only make sense. So taking that into account, if there's no other questions, I think that's fairly clear. We'll move on to the agenda, 9.3.
Sorry, through the chair. I think Board Vice Chair Huffman moved it, but we do need a seconder, and then we need to vote on that matter.
Okay. Okay, so do we have a seconder? I see Member Van Houtens has seconded. Okay, all in favor? Okay, that's been carried. Thank you. We'll move on. 9.3, Information Memo, Police Services Board 2022 meeting schedule. That's on page 58, I believe. The agenda package. The documents dated January the 19th, 2022 from our board secretary, Mrs. Olson. So the dates that we have are March the 23rd, 2022, May the 18th, 2022, September the 21st, 2022, and then we also have December the 13th, 2022. Board Secretary Olson, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. So I just want to confirm these are just what we're suggesting as the regular scheduled meetings. The board can always call a special meeting should an urgent matter come up that needs to be dealt with.
Okay. Discussion? No discussion? Oh, sorry, Member Cruz?
Mr. Chair, I was going to say I'm good with all those dates.
Okay.
As well.
Okay, very good, thank you. So taking that into account, we're going to be a mover and a seconder. So would someone like to move? Okay, we have Member Cruz moving. And do we have a seconder? Seconded by Vice Chair Huffman. All in favor? Okay, and that is carried, and moving right along with the agenda. On page 2. 9.4, orientation and the complaint process training. Just to kind of rehash this, on page 60, Ron Leclerc, who is a member from the Solicitor General's office, was contacted from the Norfolk County Police Services Board with reference to orientation and the complaint process training. I'm just wondering what dates we would like to pick. And I'm referring to, of course, page 58. Or sorry, page 60 of 60. The memo that was prepared by our board secretary, Teresa Olson. Are we looking at February or March? And what would work for the board members? And would we like this in person or virtual? Member Van Houten?
Yeah, if it was done at
Want to
early.
comment?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm totally flexible with the dates. If it's done earlier, it would have to be virtual, I guess, guessing. But
Yes.
I'm totally flexible, whatever works for the majority.
Okay.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yep. And my
Okay.
guess would be that until anything changes with Norfolk County, it would be virtual.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. Sorry, Member Cruz, you had something, you had your hand up? Oh, sorry, your volume.
I'm very flexible,
Sorry.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. So we'll put this back to the board secretary, Secretary Olson.
Through the chair. So I was just wondering, because a part of this training will also have to align with the advisor's schedule, that perhaps in the motion we could just say that the board secretary schedule and orientation and complete process training for the board, and then I can work with schedules through email with you guys to set the date. I would assume that the board is wanting this to be a training session in that can be done outside of the formal public meeting. And so in that case, we'll just work together to have that training.
Okay, that's correct. That's my understanding. How does the board feel on that?
Agree.
We're good with that?
I agree.
I see Vice Chair Huffman nod yes.
Yep.
I agree.
Okay, we're good? Okay, excellent. Okay, well, with that then, we'll need a mover and a seconder. So can someone move that information? Okay, Vice Chair Huffman has moved, seconded by Member Cruz. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. Moving right along. .5 information memo of Norfolk County. This is in regards to a referral of speeding and noise. I believe that's on page 60. Is that correct? Oh, sorry, Madam Secretary, go ahead.
Through the chair, if I may just speak to this memo a little bit. I'm not sure if the Police Service Board is aware, but I'm sure you are. I started with Norfolk County in spring of 2021. We had a lot of significant changes in the clerk's office, Ward 2 bylaw, and so we've been playing catch up through 2021. Part of our catch up was reviewing all of our referred matters list for council meetings. So part of that catch up is now coming forward in January. Some of these matters, are outstanding from things that should have been done in 2021. So this was a matter that was referred from County Council to the Police Services Board back in May. And I'll be honest, I wasn't actively clerking meetings in May. I was running the by-election. So I provided a link to the YouTube video so that the board members could kind of get an idea of what the matter specifically was. And so from what I understand, the council is looking for the board to do some investigation on a matter if they're so inclined, and then provide a recommendation back to council if the program that the county is aware of would make sense for Norfolk County. What I just wanted to point out was if the board decides to move forward with the recommendation, again, the clerk's office is really short-staffed over probably the next 2 months, and so this would not be something we could actively take on at this time. If the board members wanted to start the investigation process themselves and then provide the information to our office to complete a report. Otherwise, I just want to provide clarity on timelines. If the board moves this motion and wants staff to do it, that it's going to be a few months away before we have time to put that together for you. So I just wanted to provide that context. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. Any comment to that from our members? No comment? So is it fair to say that once we have this moved and seconded that we will leave this up to Norfolk County?
Through the chair, what it would mean if you pass this recommendation, then as clerk staff has available, they could work with probably yourself, Chair Santos, and members of the board to compile this information. So members may have contacts within the communities that they want to reach out to gather information and help with the process, or they can, request that clerk staff, again, as time permits, field this information on behalf of the board.
Okay. Member Cruz, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, can somebody enlighten me regarding the Norfolk County Road Safety Committee and just a brief overview of what their mandate is?
Okay. What I can do, Member Cruz, is ask Vice Chair Huffman to enlighten us, if that's okay.
I will do my best. I just primarily deal with Mike King and go forth there. I know that they meet, maybe Teresa might have an idea. No, I don't, it's not a monthly meeting. For some reason, I think it's a quarterly meeting that they meet, and information is brought forward. There's quite a variety of individuals on this committee, and things are brought forward in terms of road safety and speeding and enforcement and all kinds of things like that. So it's a great resource to council, and it's a great resource to constituents. So, and I unfortunately, I didn't realize we were going to be running this late. I have a prior commitment that I need to attend to immediately. So I will be signing off. My apologies.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair Huffman. Have a great day and congratulations on your position. We'll go to the board secretary. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Through the chair, the only other clarity I can provide at this meeting, and I can definitely look into it and then send an email out to confirm to the members, is I understand it's an internal committee. So there are members of the OPP, I believe, Chief Scott can confirm that, and internal county staff that meet. And actually, Mr. Scott can probably provide a lot of the context on that committee if we defer to him.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it's a great partnership that we have with the county. I'm not familiar with everyone on the board, but to just reiterate kind of what's been said, the board meets regularly. I think it is quarterly. We have usually our staff sergeant, and we have a constable here that we bring forward certain issues that, whether they're generated through public complaint or whether we identify through analytics and our processes, that we take to the board. And as we discussed previously in relation to the Highway 24 matter, they work collectively on those types of issues to try and, blend enforcement with engineering, with community, with roads department, blends it with county. We push forward ideas to county. We help county through our analytics as well to support ideas, very much like the speed monitoring, speed watch signs that are out there. That was instrumental on getting 12 for, I think it was 12 for the municipality. And it's just a nice collaborative approach to kind of mitigate, issues brought forward to the PSB and to council. But it does lend itself to taking those topics in those directions when necessary. It is a it's a great partnership and has proven very beneficial over the years.
Thanks, Inspector Scott. So Mr. Chair, through you, I had a look at what Niagara does with respect to their Loud and Clear program, and it almost, to me, looks like it's part of the regular patrol duties of an officer that are out there that go through and they watch for speeders, and they watch for loud mufflers and excessive noise and squealing of tires and all that sort of stuff. That's all part of general patrol, and it almost seems like the Loud and Clear program would have that aspect of general patrol plus a media component to get it out to the community that, okay, this is what we're doing here, and give feedback to the people who are complaining. So the media component would be the big part, and it would seem to me, and Inspector Scott would be able to add with respect to the general patrol duties of his officers.
Okay, and that's information, Board Member Cruz, that you've received with regards to the Niagara Regional Police Loud and Clear program?
No, I just viewed their YouTube on the Loud and Clear program that was given to us by Mrs. Olson. It's like 2 minutes long.
Okay.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, it's certainly something to look at moving forward. I've found here over the years, it's been, being from Port Dover, it seems every Friday 13th we get noise complaints about motorcycles without fashion, but there's not really much we can do there. It's usually a case of where we'd have to focus in, are there problem areas, and approach it from a focus patrols type strategy, and analytical strategy, because as you know, quite often when that person with loud mufflers or that squealing tires is gone, it may be tough to conduct that enforcement unless it's an identified area and we have some information. So I think any new programs worth exploring, and certainly when it comes to some related noise issues, there's some bylaws that our officers, although through the through what Jim Milson's done with bylaw, and really, and the board has done through bylaw enforcement, which has been tremendous to alleviate some of that pressure off the police, is for sure. There's also some nice bylaws that officers have enforced that have been bylaw related when it comes to noise related matters too. So I think certainly it's something to explore further and deal with when we have those identified issues or areas of concern, like we do most things. So.
Okay,
thank you.
Does that answer your question, Member Cruz?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it does. And that information, the YouTube information came from Kevin Klinenberg, not Mrs. Olson. It was through a memo to all of us.
Okay, thank you. So what I want to understand correctly here, Madam Secretary, is that the information memo regarding Norfolk County Council referral for the report regarding speeding and excess noise in Port Dover be received as information, and therefore, and that the Police Service Board accept the referral from Norfolk County Council to request the OPP prepare a report on feasibility of the program similar to the Niagara Regional Police Loud and Clear program in Norfolk County. So we're requesting that the OPP prepare a report. Is that my understanding?
Well, I think, Mr. Chair, from my perspective, that gets a little bit into an operational directive piece.
Mhm.
We certainly would explore, who the complainant is, do analytics to see if we can support the allegations in relation to that. And if there are other strategies that we can use to look to that, but to do a study on that, I don't think that would fall within our purview from my perspective.
Okay, thank you, Chief. It's just that what I'm reading here and what I understand basically is Norfolk County Council is requesting the OPP prepare a report on the feasibility of the program, similar to Niagara Regional Police. So in essence, I mean, we, Norfolk Police Services Board, can submit this and present it, but the council, but it's ultimately passing it on to the OPP. So Secretary Olson, go ahead, please.
Through the chair. So if I look at the resolution, so that might just have been an assumption on my part when I wrote when we wrote the report. The Norfolk County referred the matter to Police Services Board, not the OPP. Administratively, when we wrote the report, I guess we were thinking it would be an OPP matter, so we wrote the report suggesting the OPP would prepare it. If that's not the right direction, then I go back to my earlier statement that if you're looking for our clerk staff to help the PSB provide a report, or if to Chief Scott's point, if we can amend the motion for the OPP to look into the matter and provide a response back to the Police Services Board, we could do that as well.
Mr. Chair, through you, yes, I think that the latter would be appropriate. It might be something we can take to the Traffic Safety Committee. I am unable to find that link here in that. If somebody could forward that to me, I may just be missing it in my package here, or I can't find it. And certainly we can look at the program that Niagara is doing and the related YouTube video on that, and maybe reach out and we can explore it and report back.
Okay, thank you, Chief. So really, my point here, my concern is this more reference to Friday the 13th, or is this something that has come up on other occasions? So the question I have is to the Board Secretary Olson, if you can answer that if possible.
Through Chair Santos, perhaps Board Member Cruz watched the video. I apologize, I wasn't at that meeting, so I'm not sure what the deputation was. I did send the link to members through the report.
Okay, so thank you. Member Cruz?
Yes, I may be able to assist there. With respect to background, this came from Mr. Kenneth. It came from a member of the community representing over 165 petitioners with respect to speeding and loud noise coming through downtown and Main Street, Port Dover. And I don't know when it doesn't. And then it provided a YouTube link that showed the deputation to council. And then from there, the memo provided a link to YouTube for the Niagara Region Loud and Clear program, which is a 2-minute YouTube video. And that's where I said it seems to me like it's sort of like a regular patrol area, except for sort of a focus patrol type of thing. And of course, the media release with respect to speeding and loud mufflers and illegal mufflers and all that sort of thing. And that again came from just recently. We got it in the in an email, and the report came from Kevin Klinenberg on the 19th of January this year.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think if someone could forward that, we could reach out to the complainant. I'm gonna suggest we've probably addressed some of these concerns before, because we ran focus patrols on the main street in Dover and various places. So I think really in relation to the policing perspective, we should start with the person that has that concern. And then that would give us a more fulsome idea as to what direction perhaps we as the police can go, what support we could utilize from the board and in essence council, and whether this program would be perhaps applicable or something that would assist all of us collectively. I know historically here, the summertime, we do get several complaints because of the motorcycle traffic on long weekends and various things coming into Port Dover. And for some, it's viewed as a favorable activity, and for others, it's not. So it's just trying to get to the root of it. So if I could have that provided to me, and we can start on something from our end.
Okay. Thank you, Chief, for your words of wisdom. Now, to our member Cruz, you said January the 19th. Are we talking about today?
That's the information memo was dated January 19th. I think it came from the clerk's office to me, to us, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
through the chair, I emailed that out on Tuesday. It was an addition to the agenda, and it had a link to the digital agenda item in that link. So it was a matter that had been missed on the regular agenda printout, but we determined it was an outstanding matter that needed to be before the board at the earliest convenience. So I do have a revised motion, Chair Santos, if you want to put in a different motion on the floor.
Okay. Would you like to read that motion out, please?
Sure. That the Police Services Board requests the OPP review the concerns outlined by residents at the May 11th, 2021 Norfolk County Council meeting and further review the merits of a program similar to the Niagara Regional Police Loud and Clear program and report back to the PSB at a future meeting.
Okay. Understood. So we'll need someone to move that. Okay, we have member Cruz and seconded by member Van Houten. Okay, all in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Thank you. So moving on to the rest of the agenda. We now have a question period.
Through the chair, there was the addition item that Board Chair, Vice Chair Huffman had provided. Would you like, because she had to leave, would you like to defer that matter as other business to the next PSB meeting?
I think that's a great idea. I'm sorry, yeah, 9.6 Community Policing Committee. Yeah, since Vice Chair Huffman isn't here, it might be in our best interest to move that to March the 23rd meeting and put that on the agenda.
Okay.
Please and thank you.
No problem.
Okay. And sorry, I had gone to question period, but we're actually on number 10, correspondence arising from previous business. Is there any correspondence arising from previous business? Seeing none, we'll move on to question or point 11, question period. Is there anyone here that has any questions? Do we have any media? Seeing none. Is that correct? We don't have any media, anyone on the outside with any questions? We're good? Okay. No questions from any board members? We're good? Okay. We'll move on to point 12, next meeting, March the 23rd, 2022 at 9 a.m. Location to be seen, either administrative building and or virtual pending Omicron or COVID, correct? So with that, we'll move on to adjournment. It is 11:59 a.m. I will need a mover to adjourn the meeting. We have member Cruz and we need a seconder. We have member Van Perfect. All in favor? Okay, it's carried. Thank you, everyone. We had a great meeting. Long, but excellent meeting. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see everyone in March. And I'll connect with Board Secretary Olson within the next week.